is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Bruschi.
What exactly is psychopathy? What makes a person a psychopath? Can they control it? How does it come on? Does it ever go away? Those are just some of the many questions that I ask Dr. John Edens in this 5-part series, What Makes a Psychopath? Here's another piece of that conversation. A lot of times, psychopaths we think of in terms of the killers in history, your Ted Bundys and that sort of individual. But in the last handful of years, we've seen quite a few female killers that I don't know if they fit the bill of psychopathy. We certainly call them psycho when we look at some of their actions. Lori Vallow Daybell is one that seems to stand out quite a bit, obviously, with what she has been convicted of doing or being involved in with her children. And then when she speaks, I mean, you're talking to someone who literally, I think in her mind, is living on a different planet. Because
yeah.
I mean, she thinks she's talking to her dead children. She thinks that she killed them or they were killed for the right reasons, or that they didn't die. I mean, it's a cluster of everything that is not based at all in reality. Yet she seems to believe it, wholeheartedly. I don't really think it's an act that she's necessarily putting on. And if she is, I don't know what that means. With something like that, I mean, that's the extreme where it goes so far. Is someone like a Lori Vallow Daybell someone who has psychopathy or is psychopathic? Or is that a whole different just ball of disorders that all kind of come together and look absolutely horrible?
Yeah, I mean, it's and I got to say up front that my knowledge of that case is basically limited to this weekend watching the 3-part Netflix documentary that was done on it.
You got a good education then. That's a good starting point.
Yeah, and as a psychologist, we are. Our ethics are that, we're not supposed to diagnose people that we haven't directly evaluated. But in her case, I'm certainly happy to offer some sort of general ideas of what I at least saw in that documentary, and sort of talk about sort of what types of mental health issues might be tied into those types of actions that seem just on the surface, obviously, like how god awful could it, could you think of something much worse than being convicted of killing your own children?
Yeah.
Her own self-description in, some of the interviews that are part of that documentary, at one point, I believe she says she spoke directly to Jesus, not praying, but, was in some sort of, I don't know what was going on, but she says she's communicating directly with Jesus. As you said, she talks about, still being in contact with her children. She's involved with this guy who I think anybody would probably say seemed like somebody who's kind of trying to develop his own cult or something very bizarre. And very much was involved with him, and whether she was more of a passive participant in this or was actively it's kind of hard to say based on those types of issues. But clearly, there was a lot of stuff going on that looked on the surface of it to be what we would call delusions. And not delusions in the sense of having, some maybe strange beliefs that other people don't buy into, and that you're willing to talk rationally with people about, but you still hold. I mean, we're talking about delusions that are, way, way outside the realm of sort of normal human discourse, and that clearly are very fixed and unchanging. It seems based on, again, just what appeared in that documentary series. And if in fact all of that is accurate and true, and I don't know, because again, I've not evaluated her, most people I think would lean more towards the realm of delusional disorder and potentially something along the lines of schizophrenia or psychosis, perhaps. But again, I can't say in any sort of definitive way. If it's all a big scam to try to, after the fact, come up with some explanation for why they did these horrific things, then that might lead you down a different path in terms of diagnoses. But, based on the documentary stuff, her fascination with the end times and having this idea that there's something special about her, and the idea that they supposedly can tell whether people are evil or not, and the part of that to me that was really where it really to me was like, okay, this is a very different sort of individual than just your garden variety person who's very religious. Is when she started, they had that sort of scale of being able to tell who was, who had spirits that were
dark
more
and
or less
light.
evil. Yeah, and that the husband who ultimately was killed was actually possessed by a demon, and they gave him a different name.
Ned Schneider. Yeah, Ned Schneider. If you're gonna go for demon names, Ned Schneider is what you come up with.
Yeah, I feel comfortable saying, again, with caveats about never evaluating her, and just from watching this, that if the presentation in this documentary is true, she doesn't strike me as somebody who's highly psychopathic. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that there's not something wrong with her. And I have this in my forensic psychology class that I teach. Just because I say somebody doesn't seem highly psychopathic, that doesn't mean I'm saying they're normal.
Sure.
There's a whole book of other problems and mental diagnoses and things that people can suffer from. Just as an example, your audience might find really interesting is that Jeffrey Dahmer is somebody who experts who have kind of looked at him and rated his level of psychopathy on these professional rating scales that get used. Didn't describe him as all that especially psychopathic relative to, say, other, famous serial killers. And I say that and some people gasp. And I have to very quickly say, like, I'm not saying Jeffrey Dahmer was normal at all.
No.
I'm just saying he wasn't in the Ted Bundy range of psychopathic traits. That doesn't mean that, that everything is hunky dory.
Not everyone who commits these horrible crimes are psychopaths. They're, like you said,
right.
There's a whole other book of them. It's called the DSM.
Exactly.
And you can, there's a gazillion things that could cause somebody to go down those roads, psychopath being one of them.
Right.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.